everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week, my first question comes from David Edwards, who says, if Christians believe we are born inherently evil because of original sin, do atheists believe we are born the opposite and are inherently good? Or are we tabula rasa and have our morality and or values imprinted on us by society and environment? Speaking only for myself, I think it's probably tabula rasa, at least mostly. I suppose there could be some elements of our personalities or our attitudes or whatever that might be biologically based that we could say is passed down and we're just sort of starting out with, but I don't know enough about the subject to be able to say that for sure. I would suppose that most of what makes us ourselves as people comes from experience, comes from social conditioning, comes from our upbringing and our environment and those sorts of things. I don't think atheists, I mean, it's hard to say that atheists overall believe any particular thing apart from their atheism, because there's a lot of ideological diversity among atheists. There aren't really any atheist doctrines or specific atheist traditions that would enforce certain beliefs or certain customs or certain ideas on atheists. But yeah, apart from some sort of spiritual or religious notion like original sin that would say, okay, when people are born, they're all this way. I really don't see why you would assume that people are born inherently evil or inherently good. It would be a blank slate. And that's what I think. We are born essentially blank slates in terms of our psychology and our personality, and we are made by our experiences. Bruce Bartup, Steve, what is a YouTube video? Cinematically speaking, is it a thing at all? Is it a new medium or an old medium without editorial control? Is it a author's paradise or a liar's picnic? It is a very wide open form, isn't it? It's just as wide open as a movie, because, you know, most people have a certain idea in their head about what constitutes a movie, but if you think about it, pretty much anything that you can think of that can be represented in a visual form as a moving picture can be a movie. A movie doesn't have to have a story. A movie doesn't have to have a dramatic structure. A movie doesn't have to have a soundtrack. A movie doesn't have to be about anything particular. A movie can be abstract. A movie can be pointless. A movie can be, you know, of any particular length. A movie can be hours and hours and hours long. A movie can be a few seconds long. And I think a YouTube video is the same sort of thing. I think it's defined by the medium that we view it on, the medium that it is hosted on. And other than that, there's really no rules. It doesn't have to be any particular format, as long as the format is supported by YouTube. It doesn't have to be any particular size, any particular resolution. It doesn't have to be any particular length. It can be a couple seconds. It can be as long as you're enabled to have on your account. You know, it can be a live broadcast, or it can be recorded. It can be edited. It can be carefully structured. It can be very professionally done with a lot of finesse and a lot of style and a lot of thought and hard work put into it. Or it can be a very haphazard production created just by sitting down in front of a camera and blathering on for as long as you feel you need to blather. It's a wide open format, and it's difficult to define particularly what it is. It can be whatever you make of it. If you are the author of YouTube videos, you have a virtually unlimited, humongous canvas at your fingertips, and you can paint on that canvas whatever you have the capability of doing and whatever you can imagine to do. It's completely wide open. The Insane Pumpkin Carver. Hey Steve, why are all Republicans insane? When you compare many prominent Republican politicians, like Gingrich, Romney, and Cruz, to their European conservative counterparts, like Cameron, Merkel, and Sarkozy, the Europeans are clearly like a beacon of reason and enlightenment compared. I've heard that before Reagan, the Republicans were a normal conservative party, but for some reason they suddenly went batshit insane. Why do you think that is? And can it be reversed? I often feel bad for ordinary, everyday American citizens who are Republicans, who are not politicians, who are not pundits, who are not activists, who are just people who, for whatever reason, identify more with the Republican Party, are registered Republican, tend to vote Republican. And I look at people like Donald Trump and Ben Carson and Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee and all of these Republican presidential candidates, and I think, who are the sane, reasonable Republicans going to vote for? And I don't know. I don't know who the reasonable candidate is. Maybe Kasich, but Kasich has problems of his own. Maybe Jeb Bush, but Jeb Bush is Jeb Bush. You know, I don't know who the choice for just the reasonable, middle-of-the-road, moderate Republicans is. And the reason that there isn't really that kind of a choice is a result of what I think drove the Republican Party crazy in the first place, which is 40 years ago or so, when the Reagan era was beginning, the Republican Party sort of made a deal with its most conservative, radical elements, with religious conservatives, Christian conservatives, the moral majority, and they decided that their message was going to be that they were the patriotic party, they were the party of low taxes, and they were the party of America and keeping America strong, and America's great, and America's always been great, and we're going to make sure America stays great. And it's these foreigners and these poor people and these women and these black folks, and, you know, they're the ones that are the problems. It's all these people on welfare. It's all these liberals picking our pockets for social programs. And that's what the modern Republican Party has become. And they did it so that they could appeal to the basest members of their base. They could fearmonger. They could demagogue their political opponents. And they would be able to maintain political power on the basis of that. And it's worked. And it has been to the detriment of the country as a whole. And it has, in the long run, been to the detriment of the Republican Party. Because now it becomes more and more difficult to deny that the party itself, not just the radicals, not just the Tea Parties, but the mainstream Republican Party itself has become radicalized. And that's becoming more and more obvious to people. I mean, look at how long Donald Trump has maintained his lead in polls for the Republican presidential nomination. That's something that should terrify reasonable Republicans. Hexa Lobular. Hi, I'm wondering what artistic, emotional, and was it personal truths are exactly. I hear about them occasionally in discussions and videos, like your answers to Matt Slick's 31 questions, but I can't figure out what that's supposed to mean. I'm probably just too stuck in the usual meaning of truth, and I just have to think outside the box, but I have no idea which direction to start thinking. Also, Artistic Truth is the title of a book, which makes it very hard to find anything useful with Google. An artistic truth might be something like an expression of the artist's personal feelings or the artist's experience that another person can identify with. You know, you read a book and you connect with it on an emotional level. And you think this author is feeling the same things that I'm feeling. Or you look at a painting and you think this is something that resonates with me, that I feel is familiar, that I connect to. I know what this means. I know where this came from, even though I didn't do it myself. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say artistic truth or emotional truth. It can also be something that you encounter in relationships with people. And it's very subjective. It's very much in the eye of the beholder. It's a lot like other things that we might find incredibly valuable in our lives, but vary greatly depending on the person experiencing them, like beauty, like humor. You know, just because I think something is funny doesn't mean someone else will think that thing is funny. If I laugh at a particular joke and I think that joke is funny, then I might express that by saying, you know, that joke is funny is something that is true for me. That would be a personal truth. So that's the kind of thing I mean. Truth in the sense that it's true for me or true in this particular scenario, true of this particular work, in this particular context, not necessarily absolutely, objectively true in the same way for everybody. That's what I mean when I say things like artistic truth or emotional truth, as opposed to factual truth. Metzen Young. Steve, in one of the lightning round questions, you said you are not very optimistic about humans on Mars in the next 20 to 30 years. While I see all the pitfalls that have hindered us in the past and now, I have also seen firsthand a lot of progress, both technology-wise and policy-wise, that makes me more optimistic for a human landing in 2037, 2039, 2041 orbits being what they are. What would it take for you to be more optimistic about NASA's prospects for landing on Mars in the time frame they are currently talking about? Second star on the right and straight on till morning, Metzen. I think I would have to see a renewal of public interest in such a mission, public excitement about the prospect of a human mission to Mars, and a renewal of the political will to make such a thing happen. I think you're right. I mean, there are reasons to be optimistic. There has been some movement, I think very gradual movement in a positive direction in the last few years. You know, things like the various unmanned missions to Mars that have generated excitement, the Pluto flyby recently that have generated some excitement, the movie The Martian, I think sort of got a lot of people thinking and got some people excited about the prospect of putting people on Mars for real. So, I mean, there are movements in the positive direction, and certainly the Obama administration has been much more positive and supportive of NASA in general than previous administrations have been. But I mean, people were talking about Mars being the next step in manned spaceflight in the 70s. There were people at NASA at the conclusion of the Apollo program who were like, give us 5 or 10 more years and we'll be on Mars. And it just, there was no will to do it. It was just, okay, we've done that, moving along, we can spend the money somewhere else. And I feel like that attitude has prevailed ever since then. And I don't see enough cracks in that just ambivalence to manned space travel that makes me think, oh, we're actually going to go to Mars. I would love to see it, but I just don't see it right now. I hope I'm wrong, though, because people landing on Mars in 2037 or 2039 or 2041, I mean, I would take that. That would be great. Aaron Reynolds. Steve, this will be the first time making this explicit statement, so I appreciate your indulgence. I am an atheist. My way of seeing life comes from a place of anger and confusion at how I see others treated by a worldview I once held dear. Would you be so kind as to offer advice on dealing with the anger when I am inevitably confronted by friends and family? I understand you're not a psychiatrist. However, you must know tactics to convey a cogent yet friendly point. All the best. If you're confronted by family members who are angry or hurt or alarmed when you tell them for the first time that you're an atheist, one of the best things I think to do is to make it clear to them that you're not an atheist because you hate them. You're not an atheist because you are rejecting their friendship or their love or their status as a family member of yours. You're not a different person than you were before. You're still the same person you've always been. You've just had a change of outlook or a change of belief. You know, I see people being treated unfairly because of this religious view. I see people being discriminated against because of this, or with this view being used as the justification. I see all sorts of things that I don't think are right, that I don't think should be allowed or justified or accepted or tolerated, and I can't support these things in good conscience. You know, you can explain it in a calm tone of voice. You can explain it in a way that tells the people you're talking to that you're just asking for understanding. You're just clarifying your views. You're just sharing with the people who you're talking to what's in your heart, what's on your mind. You don't have to do it in an angry way. You can do it in a here's who I am kind of way. And I think that would be helpful. That would be good. And just try whatever you can to make it not a confrontation, not an argument, not an I'm right and you're wrong and here's why. It's very tempting to do that, especially when you've just become an atheist and you're flush with this new point of view and you're taking in all these arguments from all these other atheists as to why this religion is wrong and why atheism is a more rational position. And it's very easy to just get into an argument and just start throwing out arguments and throwing out evidence and saying, there, do something with that, prove that wrong. And to me, especially when you're talking about interacting with friends and family, it's much better to just say, look, here's who I am, here's how I feel, here's what I think, here's what's important to me, Here's why I used to think this way, but now I think this way. Becca Hawkins. Dear Steve, I remember briefly meeting a popular Christian apologist when I worked for a Christian publishing house that was doing a project with him, and I was able to sit in on a meeting with him. The apologist was claiming that millennials are more interested in ambiguity, whereas older generations value certainty more, and that the two sometimes seem to speak totally different languages. When I offered my opinion that ambiguity and certainty are acknowledged by people across generations, while acknowledging that there are some trends in particular generations, the response was, "See? I have no idea what this young person is saying." Totally different language. What are your thoughts on the topic of millennials versus Gen X versus boomers? Do you observe a difference between older and younger atheists or older and younger Christians, or is the generation gap overemphasized? Love your channel, Becca. I don't know. Do I think that younger atheists or younger Christians value ambiguity more than certainty? I mean, maybe it's just that they feel that there are fewer things in life that they can be certain of. Maybe the world that baby boomers were born into felt more certain, more solid, more stable when they were coming of age than the world felt when people were coming of age in the 80s or the 90s or as they come of age now. Maybe that's it. You're reacting to the world that you were born into, the world that you were raised in. I think you're kind of on the right track. I think certainty and ambiguity are things that are acknowledged and valued at various levels by people of all generations. And if there is a trend among a particular generation where people seem to gravitate more toward ambiguity and less toward supposed certainty, then it's not that there's anything particularly, different about people of that generation. It's just that they're reacting to their circumstances. And their circumstances may be different, or they may perceive their circumstances differently than people in the previous generation. Peter McLaughlin. Steve, this question sounds like a joke, but I am somewhat serious. Do you think the Republican Party, lacking any substance, has largely come to depend on performance art instead of policy with its base? Do you think Donald Trump's strong showing is due to his ties to WWF? In other words, do you think things on the Republican side have become pure vacuous spectacle and people familiar with things like WWF have the upper hand? Is it the same with figures like Rush and Ann Coulter? Is the base of the Republican Party just a WWF fandom base? And is someone like Trump doing what Andy Kaufman did back in the day, where you could not tell if he was putting you on or really believed his bullshit? And of course, the donors or promoters walk away with the cash/government. I think the wrestling metaphor is a pretty good one. The whole point of promoting wrestling is to get people to buy a ticket to the next show. And once they have the ticket, once you've got their money, the actual show, at least in the minds of some people, in the minds of some promoters, the actual show becomes secondary. It's the fact that you sold the show. You got them to buy the show. And at the most recent Democratic debate, Martin O'Malley compared Donald Trump to a carnival barker. And that's a great metaphor, too. Donald Trump is the guy standing outside the tent saying whatever he needs to say to get you to pay your entrance fee and get inside the tent. And once you're inside the tent, he doesn't care what happens. That's not his job. His job is to get you inside the tent. And yeah, the problem with the Republican Party is they have spent so much time trying to talk people inside the tent that they haven't wasted any time figuring out what's actually in the tent or what's actually going to happen on the wrestling show. They don't know what the matches are. They don't know who's wrestling who. They don't know who's winning and who's losing. They don't know what is going to happen at the next show as a result of this one. They haven't thought of any of that. All they know is we need to say whatever we need to say to get people in the building. When you look not just at Donald Trump, but I mean, look at how Ted Cruz performs in front of a friendly audience. He's playing completely for applause lines. He's playing for laughs. He's playing for saying lines, making jokes, making statements that he knows will just get him positive reactions. He's not saying things in terms of what would be good policy, what would be a responsible thing for a presidential candidate to say. He does not care about anything other than getting the crowd to react positively to what he has to say. And that is a problem, because that seems to be all any of the Republican presidential candidates care about. And the thing is, eventually, people are going to be inside the tent, waiting for the show to start, And then you have to put on a show. You have to give them what they paid for. And the Republican Party, specifically, especially those presidential candidates, seem to have no idea what that's going to be. And they don't even seem to be all that interested in it. They just want to talk us into the tent. Meanwhile, I just want to talk you guys from here to
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
And I don't even have to talk very much. See? Joanna Roberts, following on Kevin's question, where are your pants? Also, Ash versus the Evil Dead on Stars. Yes? Yes. My pants are right here, as always. And I have not seen the new Evil Dead show, so I can't say yes or yes. But I mean, I love Ash. I love the Evil Dead movies as they are, so I'm sure it's a good show. I haven't watched it yet, though. Piker Eyes. I wanted to ask a deep philosophical question. I had it all typed up and ready to go, but I decided it wasn't good enough to deserve an answer. So instead of what could have been a groundbreaking question, a question that could have spurred your channel to an even larger audience, I choose the following. How are you doing? I'm good, man. How are you? How's the dog? Patrick Dodds. Steve, can I get a fist bump from you? There you go. Right there. Boom. Lucas Hackett, One Angry Brony. Hey, Steve, I noticed on your Facebook likes that you like Double Dare. What would you say is your favorite rendition of the show and why? The original Double Dare, Super Sloppy Double Dare, or Family Double Dare? P.S. Double Dare 2000 doesn't count because it just wasn't the same without the awesome and kick-ass Mark Summers as host. I'd rather have him as host instead of anybody else. Well, I agree with you there. Mark Summers, for life. Mark Summers, for life. I guess the original Double Dare, that's probably the one I first saw. I didn't actually watch it on Nickelodeon when it was first on. I saw they had like a syndicated version that they would show. Or no, I think Fox. Fox had a version that they aired on weekday afternoons. That's the version of it that I first saw. Yeah, huge Double Dare fan. I actually watch it on YouTube sometimes. RM18CPR, lightning round question. Do you have some expensive, frivolous purchase that you know is ridiculous but still love? I purchased a signed copy of Stan Lee's new memoir last week for $100 because I love Stan Lee and don't regret it even slightly. Nor should you. To me, that's a quality purchase. No, I don't really have any huge frivolous purchases. I mean, I have things now that I thought were big purchases at the time that now basically I don't really use anymore. Like I have, well, one of them was a gift. Actually, two of them were gifts. I have the full DVD set of Angel and the full DVD set of Star Trek The Next Generation, which were both gifts to me from my lovely wife that I treasure and immensely. But now all that stuff's on Netflix, so it's not like I actually need to have the whole thing on DVD. But it's still something that I would never want to not have. But I don't really have anything else like that. Radical Bacon. What do you think about nuclear power? I think nuclear power would be all right, but I'm concerned about it not because of the inherent dangers in nuclear power, but because I feel like nuclear power, in order to be safe, especially with the waste disposal, you'd have to have a really just crackerjack operation. You have to have a completely safe and efficient infrastructure to transport the waste safely away from the power plant and into the side of the mountain or wherever you're going to bury it, so that it doesn't hurt anybody as it's decaying over the next million years or whatever. And you need to maintain that infrastructure to keep it safe. And maintaining infrastructure is something that we just don't give a shit about anymore in the United States. So I'm worried about it for that reason. I think if we were able to keep it up and pay attention to it and continue to maintain it, the nuclear power could be fine, and it would be worth, I think, the risks that you take in having that kind of a power source. But we're Americans and we don't care about infrastructure, so we would have nuclear power plants. If we started opening more of them and we started having to have more nuclear waste transported across the country, it would work fine for probably 10 or 15 years, and then once the infrastructure started to break down, we'd start to have horrible accidents because we don't pay attention to that shit, because we're short-sighted and kind of dumb. Kevin Logan, will you still love me tomorrow? Yes, Kevin, I will still love you tomorrow. And before you ask, I will still need you, and I will still feed you when you're 64. Hey, that's it for the questions, everybody. Time for a shout-out. And the shout-out this week goes to the YouTube channel called Faithless Feminist. This is the YouTube channel of Karen Garst. And Karen is not only someone who has this YouTube channel, but she is a blogger at the website faithlessfeminist.com. And as you may have deduced from that title, she is an atheist and a feminist, and she writes about things from the perspective of a woman, a feminist, who is also a non-believer, who is an atheist. She's actually editing a book, not yet released, but being released relatively soon, I think, from what she said, on women writing about their experiences as atheists, which sounds like something that I would just be fascinated by. And you can read her blog at faithlessfeminist.com. You can check out her YouTube channel where you can see various talks that she's given at events around the country about atheism and feminism and women's experiences in the atheist community. And you can also watch a really great interview that she did with one of my pals and one of my favorite people, Christy Winters. It's about an hour long or so, and it's just a really awesome interview where Christy interviews Karen Garst, and they talk about her career and her outlook and her work, and it's just awesome. So if you're interested in atheism, if you're interested in feminism, if you're interested in women's experiences in atheism, in the atheist community, in the atheist movement, check out Faithless Feminist, Karen Garst's YouTube channel. I highly recommend it. I think you'll really enjoy it, if you're like me. I also want to remind you that this weekend, November 28th, is the Extra Life for Kids fundraiser event being held by my buddies at the Gaming Heretic channel. You can go to extra-life.org for more information just on the Extra Life organization in general, and you can go to playgameshealkids.com to donate to the fundraiser for this event being held by the Gaming Heretic guys. It's November 28th, which is this Saturday, and it is a 24-hour gaming marathon to raise money for children's hospitals. In particular, this event is for the benefit of Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. You can watch online at the Gaming Heretics YouTube channel, and if you happen to be in the Murfreesboro, Tennessee area, you can go to their actual event, which is going to be held at The Score in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, again, on November 28th. So go there, check it out if you're in the area. If not, if you want to donate to a worthy cause, raise money for a great children's hospital, again, playgameshealkids.com this weekend. If you have some extra spare change, throw it their direction. It's a really great cause. I also want to remind you, as always, to check out the Lemme Listen podcasts. You can go to lemmelistenpodcasts.com and listen to American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, the hilarious improv comedy podcast. You can listen to Lemme Finish, which is between Jason Harding and Atticus Blake, and Late Seating, the podcast co-hosted by me and Jason Harding. These are all the products of the demented genius of my good friend Jason Harding of Opinionville. And if you want to know what the movie that we're reviewing in the most recent episode of Late Seating is, it is none other than that Thanksgiving classic, a movie that you were probably going to watch with your families over the weekend anyway, Independence Day. Yeah, 4th of July, alien invasion, Will Smith talking incessantly. Thanksgiving. We review Independence Day on the most recent episode of Late Seating. It'll be up later today if you're watching this video on Friday when I publish it. So check it out. Check them all out. LetMeListenPodcast.com. Thanks all of you guys for watching. It's before Thanksgiving when I'm taping this. It'll be after Thanksgiving when you're watching it. So let me just say I hope you will have had a nice Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate it or celebrated it. And I will see you next week. Leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next week. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of them as I possibly can in the next video. Until then, take care, everybody. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching. See you next time.